Once upon a time, in the heart of Lagos, the city that never sleeps, lived a man whose name echoed through every boardroom and banquet hall from Victoria Island to Abuja. His name was Chief Okechukwu Nnadi, a man of immense wealth, influence, and power. He was not just any businessman. He was the businessman. The kind of man whose handshake could change a man's fortune overnight, and whose name on a contract made competitors tremble. They called him the Lion of Ikoyi, not just for his wealth, but for the way he roared through life, bold, proud, and unyielding. His companies ranged from oil and gas to telecommunications, construction, and import-export. Every year, magazines ranked him among Nigeria's top billionaires, and still, he wore his agbada like a simple man, sipping bitter cola and speaking in Igbo proverbs when meetings became too serious. But despite all his success in business, Chief Okechukwu felt like a stranger in his own home. He had 4 children: Chinedu, the first son and supposed heir to the empire; Ades, the graceful daughter who had lived abroad for years; Obinna, the second son, always chasing the next flashy venture; and Ngozi, the last-born, a social media celebrity who cared more about followers than family. His wife, Madame Ebele, had stood by him during the years of struggle. She was once the fire in his soul, beautiful, wise, and patient. But as the wealth grew, so did the distance between them. Ebele had become consumed by society functions, charity galas, and exotic vacations with her circle of wealthy friends. She barely noticed when he stopped attending events or started eating alone in silence. What troubled the chief most was how shallow and self-centered his children had become. They only called when they needed money. They only visited when the topic of inheritance came up. Not one of them truly sat with him anymore. Not one asked, "Papa, how are you doing?" The house that once rang with laughter and evening prayers now echoed with silence, luxury, and tension. Could it be, he asked himself one night while staring at the ceiling, that I have raised children who only love what I can give them, not who I am? He had given them everything: international education, cars before their 21st birthdays, business connections, and more. But they had become strangers with familiar names. And so, one evening, as the rain pelted against the windows of his mansion in Banana Island, Chief Okechukwu made a decision. If I were dying today, would they cry for me or for my money? The next morning, Chief summoned his most trusted employee, Sonia Uche, a short, sharp-eyed man who had been with him since the beginning. Uche had once pushed a wheelbarrow of cement with him in Onitsha, back when the chief had only 1 plot of land to his name. Now he was his personal assistant, estate manager, and the closest thing to a brother. "Uche," the chief said in a low voice, "tell them I am sick, gravely sick. Let it leak, but don't make an announcement. Whisper it to the staff. Let the walls carry the message." Uche raised an eyebrow, confused. "Sir, sick? But you're strong as a lion." The chief smiled sadly. "That's what I want to find out. Who comes to care for the lion when he no longer roars?" By midday, the house had changed. The maids walked around with worried faces. The cook started boiling pepper soup for healing. The driver told the gatekeeper, who told the gardener, who told the mechanic, and by evening the family WhatsApp group was buzzing like a hornet's nest. "I heard Papa collapsed. They say he's coughing blood. Someone said he can no longer walk." By dawn the next day, Chinedu arrived in a black SUV wearing a worried look that didn't quite reach his eyes. He barged into the house, brushing past the cook. "Where is Uche? I need to speak to him urgently," he demanded. But instead of going to his father's room, he pulled Uche aside. "Look, just tell me the truth. Has he signed the final will? Has the property in Lekki been assigned to me yet?" There was no prayer, no sitting by his father's bed, just questions about assets. A few hours later, Adais flew in from London. Dressed in designer clothes and clutching a bag worth more than some people's annual income, she arrived with dramatic flair. She walked into the bedroom, fell to her knees, and cried, "Oh, Papa, my lion, my shield, don't leave us." But later that evening, when she thought no one was watching, she was on a call with her husband. "Darling, once Papa's will is read, we can finally buy that flat in Dubai. God works in mysterious ways." Obinna, the second son, didn't bother showing up in person. He sent a lawyer. Yes, a lawyer. The man came holding papers and wearing a suit in the Lagos heat. "Good afternoon, sir. I'm here to verify certain documents relating to Chief's holdings, just in case, for estate planning purposes." And last of all was Ngozi, the baby of the family. She strolled in 2 days late, recording herself on Instagram Live at the front gate. "Guys, pray for my dad, yeah? He's like really sick. Don't forget to like, comment, and share." Inside the house, she barely stayed 10 minutes in his room before complaining. "There's no Wi-Fi here? Ah. And where's the AC remote? This heat is not for me, abeg." Even Madame Ebele, his wife, seemed more interested in who controlled the estate's finances than in her husband's health. She sat with Uche on the third night, fanning herself lazily. "We've been married for over 35 years. Surely you know what he promised me. Tell me the truth. Are my documents in order? I can't afford surprises." On the 5th day, after observing the parade of greed, entitlement, and false affection, Chief Okechukwu rang the bell by his bedside. Everyone was summoned. The air in the living room was heavy, like rain just before a thunderstorm. Mazi Uche stood beside the chief. The children stood in a loose circle, murmuring. Adaisi dabbed fake tears. Chinedu cleared his throat every 5 seconds. Ngozi was checking her phone. Then the bedroom door opened, and Chief Okechukwu walked in, upright, strong, furious. "Good evening, my beloved family," he said slowly. "It seems I died, and no one told me." The silence was sharp, jaws dropped, Adaisi staggered. Obinna's lawyer slipped out quietly. "So this is who you are," the chief said, his voice trembling with fury. "You came here not for me, but for my possessions. You sat by my bedside counting properties instead of holding my hand. My own wife spoke more of deeds than of devotion. My children, you children, you do not love me, you love my money." The children started wailing. "Papa, no, it's not like that. Daddy, I was just worried. Sir, it was confusion. You know how these things are." But the chief raised his hand. "Silence. I have rewritten my will. The companies will be handed over to a trust, not to you. The lands will be used for schools and hospitals. The wealth will now serve those who need it, not those who feel entitled to it." Gasps, cries, panic. "As for each of you," he said coldly, "you will inherit nothing but the truth of who you have become.